ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another broadcast of The Weekly with me, Neff. Please subscribe to the channel, share this video with a couple of family, friends, and colleagues. I appreciate the support. Wanted to talk about a little bit of the reviews for Running Man, which is out right now. So we're going to look at some Rotten Tomatoes stuff, maybe a little bit of IMDb, right? We're going to look at what the critics say. We're going to look at what the people say because this film is now out along with a couple other films this week that I will be watching. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what the people think about it, and then we'll look at what IMDb is saying about the film overall. So let's just jump into it. Look up at your screen, Rotten Tomatoes right now. We have the scores for Running Man, which is in theaters right now. And as a side note, the film has quite the crew and cast. So you have Edgar Wright, who's the director for this remake, Glen Powell, starring Katie O'Brien, Jamie Lawson, Josh Brolin, Lee Pace, and I believe Michael Cera as well. So pretty solid cast there for this film. So if you're looking at that screen, right, the tomato meter sitting at a 64%. So pretty tame, but they do have it at a fresh, right? Not the highest score, not the best score. 196 reviews from the critics and at 82% from the popcorn meter with over 250 verified ratings. Now, let's look at 3 from the critics and then let's look at 3 from the audience members, and then we'll go over to IMDb. So this is from Peter Travers, top critic, the Travers Take. He gives it a 2.5 out of 4 stars, so I'd say pretty mediocre score overall. Glen Powell runs for his life to win a reality TV jackpot in a remake of a dystopian Stephen King thriller that comes on like gangbusters until it loses steam. So maybe it starts out hot and then kind of slows down. Let's see, the next one. This is Stephanie Zacharek from Time Magazine, pretty big publication there. She's a top critic. The Running Man is just a slog, so I wouldn't say a very in-depth review there. Pretty lazy in her review, and this is from Time Magazine. This is what you're getting from Time Magazine. Very interesting there. This is from Financial Times. I guess they're into cinema now. They're doing reviews on it, I guess. Jonathan Romney, top critic, gives it 3 out of 5 stars. He goes on to say, it all somewhat comes undone in a confusing, slightly desperate coda, but is otherwise a genial, bracingly manic entertainment piece. Let's just do one more. Abby Alces, The Pitch. It's clear Powell wants to be Cruise or Brad Pitt level, but what might that look like? The Running Man has the answer, and it's pretty damn compelling. So she does give it a fresh score overall, but not a numerical score. Now let's look at what the audience says. This is from Dill. 3 out of 5 stars. Great overall, ending drops off in quality, but is a fun time. Brian, 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was pretty good and very enjoyable. For a modern perspective, several factors make the film more believable, given the rise of social media and AI integrated into the film's story. William, a cheap remake of a movie that originally failed. He gives it 0.5 out of 5 stars, so pretty harsh there. And speaking on the past film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously based off the Stephen King novel, I do think that I felt like just watching the trailers, not that we knew too much about it because it is a remake, so it's not like we're going to get too much new when it comes to this film. I thought this film may have fared better than the original, to be quite honest. Like the original Running Man, it's a decent film, but it's not that good. I much prefer Total Recall, obviously different authors and different films, but I'd say in the same vein only because you had about, 3 years in between Running Man and Total Recall for Arnold, so definitely when he was in his prime as far as the acting was going. But let's finish up with Rotten Tomatoes reviews. Clark B, awesome, entertaining, and builds suspense, 5 out of 5 stars. So got a perfect score there. This is Kristen S. Such a fun, action-packed movie, very violent at times. Not for the faint of heart. Lots of parallels of what is happening in our country right now. And this is really why I thought this version of the film, obviously the remake, would fare a lot better than that original depiction of the Running Man. So, it seems like the audience likes it a lot more than the critics. We've seen these deviations before. Let's see what IMDb has to say about the film, and not so much what they have to say, but the score for it. So now we're looking at IMDb for the Running Man, sitting at a 6.8 out of 10. So once again, more in alignment with the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. So, depending on how you feel about this film, it's all subjective. You're looking at a solid 6.5 to 7, ladies and gents. This film runs about 2 hours and 13 minutes. I've heard pretty much the same things about this film. It could be one of those films where you've seen a lot of the cool scenes in the trailer, and then when you watch the film, there are some dead spots, lulls, and you say, wow, well, the trailer made me think this film was going to be action-packed all the way through. And as you saw in that last review, the lady did say it was action-packed, but like I said, Action to some people, I guess, is different, and it could be subjective on what people think is really action-packed and what isn't. But I have heard that gripe. And like some other people said, starts off hot in the beginning, slows down in the end. Possibly a film that ran a little too long. Probably could have cut 30 minutes off the film, and it might have been rated a little higher. But IMDb says this film is at a 6.8 out of 10. Definitely looks entertaining. I'm looking into going to watch this film next week. This week, I'm going to be watching Keeper, and I'll talk about the reviews for that, which are very interesting as well. We had the critic reviews come out, right? They lifted the embargo a little late, in my opinion, and it was sitting at a specific score. And then when I checked it later, the score dropped significantly, so very interesting. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about what the people think about Keeper. But I just wanted to cover Running Man right now for Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb. I'll more than likely be watching this film next week, and I'll have a review out for it, so please lock in for that. Definitely going to be very cool. I'm excited for the film. I think it's going to be action-packed and fun. Going to keep my expectations tame, but overall, I think it'll be decent. If you're watching The Running Man this weekend, let me know what you think about the film. Also, if you've seen the original Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, what do you think about the film in comparison to this modern take of the film? I want to hear your thoughts on that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Ring the bell for notifications. Comment down below. Like I said, like this video. And also share. I appreciate it. Be safe. It's Neff signing off.